Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's good to see everybody. How are you, Ping?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. You guys might notice, well, there's a couple, it's like a Stranger Things kind of night around here, maybe. Um, so I had a little problem with the thumbnail tonight. I'm going to fix it. Sorry, there's no description. It's just all a surprise, but that's okay. We can be mysterious every once in a while, right? And also, there we go. Am I frozen?
No, you're all right.
Okay, it's freezing on my end. Okay.
Yeah, you're actually pretty good, pretty smooth on this side.
Okay. Okay, so let me do this. Let me fix this. I can't stand my head that big. Ugh. Okay. But you might notice up in the right over my finger, there's a new little icon, and Ping and I are talking about rebranding this channel. And so if you all have any feedback, I know one of the ways that we've been describing this channel to people is it's like true crime light. It's we're not gonna get super deep into documents and things like that over here. And we like that we can add a little bit of pop culture and fun to this without being disrespectful to victims and victims' families and stuff. So, on that note, y'all can give us your honest opinions. We're just trying to do what it takes to build this channel, and we thought, well, maybe maybe the other logo just isn't working for us, and that happens sometimes. So back to the drawing board, right?
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. See what people have to say after tonight, and at least this one's smaller. Maybe the other one's just too long, and people are like, I can never remember that. I'm not going to subscribe to them.
Right. And too, because I mean, people that already know you as Ping, you're Ping, but I spell my name differently, and you know what I mean? Like, and is it AND or is it ampersand? And like, maybe it's just not like, you know, it's just not, we couldn't make fetch happen. I don't know. Hey, Rowan, it's been so long since I've seen you. I catch you on Twitter every once in a while. It's good to see you, Tracy L and Miss Peaches and Eric and PB&J and Berserker and Emily Nora and Petunia. Hey, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well this evening. It is always nice to be back. So, I was going to start with a story that I found. Do you remember when, like, Ping, you and I didn't really talk during this time, but do you remember when COVID and the lockdown started? And, we talked about some of our worries and concerns about, what would happen to kids at school. Like, that's, not being in school, like for a lot of children, that's their safe place, or domestic violence victims and the economic impact, and how it would affect crime in general. Did you have those conversations? Because I wasn't really involved, like, with you at that time and in other projects.
So, being in a country and a state that had one of the longest lockdowns in the world,
Mm-hmm.
those were great concerns down here. Our school kids almost lost 2 years of school because of the lockdowns here, especially in where I live. Where I live, we had 250 something days of lockdown,
Oh my gosh.
and a lot of the kids, and that even when the lockdowns lifted, the schools didn't go back straight away. They
Mm-hmm.
were, phased in slowly, or some didn't go back, or some had requirements. Some didn't go back until the following year. So a lot of school kids lost that interaction and time outside of the home for almost 2 years. And I think it was somewhat detrimental to a lot of children and their development.
Right. Sorry, I just got a weird text. I apologize. Yeah, so, there were a lot of things that I think we all anticipated might be issues. This is one that I honestly hadn't thought of. And I caught this story today. This came from random, the Belleville News Democrat. But it's a story about a guy who, they're using the term harvested. He harvested identities of rideshare app customers and created fake drivers, feds say. So this man, I'll give you the gist of it, and then if we need to read this, we can. This man is an illegal immigrant, and he was trying to make money during COVID. And so what he realized was probably as the pandemic was starting, that it was very easy to create a fake driver profile with companies like Uber and what's the other one? Lyft, because you send in your driver's license. And apparently he found a flaw in the system where they don't check things out. Oh well. So he was photoshopping driver's licenses. And then when he could, he was stealing the identities of the people that he drove to create more driver profiles for other people, and using this, like either selling the identities to other people that were doing his thing, or to just random people. And not only was he switching when I say Photoshop, he was simply switching the pictures on the driver's licenses. So, like, let's just say it was, me doing this. I would take somebody else's driver's license and put my photo on there. So when they put my driver photo up there and you're looking for their driver in the car, I'm going to match all of that information. But Amy is not going to pay taxes on that income. So somebody else is going to get a W-2 for that, or however they do it. A 1099, I guess, is how Uber and Lyft work, like independent contractor at the end of the year. Well, then they got into Instacart and those kind of grocery delivery services. And they specifically liked people that ordered alcohol, because when you order alcohol from Instacart and some of the other services, you have to provide your driver with a photo ID to prove you're of legal age to receive those products that are restricted. And so they were taking those IDs, and my screen is completely locked, so I can't see anything, so I apologize. They were taking those identities and creating extra profiles and then laundering all this money through. So this was like quite a thing. This is came out of California. So at the end of it, it says the gentleman's name, the mastermind behind the plan, his name is Gustavo Diavila Morera Farenya. He's 30. He victimized 100 people who used Uber, Lyft, and food delivery services like Amazon, DoorDash, Grubhub, Postmates, and Caviar. He's being prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of California. They had a lot of people identified in this ring, but they were using false names, so it's hard to track them down, and they're not documented citizens. So Homeland Security is now involved in this. Diavila, what kind of a sentence would you expect somebody to to get for doing this, for defrauding over 100 people, assuming their identities, causing them IRS problems, basically jeopardizing to anybody that got into those Uber and Lyfts, because the people who said they were driving weren't the people driving you. You know
It's
what I mean?
identity theft at a minimum.
It is. I mean, what would you expect the sentence to be?
Probably, I don't know, white collar crimes tend to get less. So maybe 5 years.
He got 3. He got 3. He was sentenced yesterday. He got 3 years. They identified 4 people. They positively connected to 4 people under him, which would make it an organized crime ring, basically.
Should be RICO charges after that.
Right? I gotta tell you something funny about RICO in a minute, but that's all. That's just give me a minute. Yeah. So he got 3 years for wire fraud and identity theft between 2018 and 2021 over a 3-year period, and his co-conspirators got between 1.5 and 2 years. So then he'll be deported. I believe he's from, I have to go back and look. I want to say he's from Brazil. Yeah, he's from Brazil. So here's an example of how they set us up. So it begins with Uber and Lyft, like I said, in 2018. And the scheme begins where he makes a fake driver account with Uber using a California resident's identity, but it was linked to Davila and his girlfriend's bank account. With this account, the victim's real driver's license was used, but it was edited to include a photo of him, and the account did more than 1,000 Uber rides between 2018 and 2019. So he got all the money, and that other person paid all the taxes on it. Several other victims' driver's licenses were photoshopped and used similarly. Some of them were sold. Some of them were put out to co-conspirators. But I don't understand technology-enabled crime. I mean, I do understand technology-enabled crimes, but I guess what I don't understand is why we aren't sending a message about crimes that are committed and that are tech-based and white collar. Like 3 years, really? You stole from 100 people. If you broke into 100 people's homes over a 3-year period, you would be in jail for a lot longer because you'd have to follow the minimum sentencing guidelines.
So, Amy, I don't know if you saw, there was a documentary that came out like, I don't know, maybe a month or 2 ago. It was about a guy who was doing SIM card hacking and then getting into people's bank accounts and stealing all their money. He stole something like, it was like $50 million or something. And he destroyed the credit and lives of like hundreds of people. And so what he was doing is he was getting into their emails. Then what he did was he'd gather enough information. He'd call the telephone company and get them to make a eSIM activate for that phone number, so your phone number. Then what he can do is he can request like a password reset or an access code to that number to get into your banking. And he was like ciphering all this money off out of people's bank accounts, destroying their credit. And the judge gave him like, it wasn't even all that much. I think it was around 4 or 5 years or something. I think he's out now actually. And the judge was like, well, you know, you've got a good prospects at life and you're obviously very smart. You know, I hope you take this as a lesson. And that's it.
See, because I feel like, I mean, these guys will be deported, but that's not to say that they won't start another theft ring or security issue or tech crime from another country. It happens all the time. So I think you need to, you know, set the lesson high. Or I don't know. I was just thinking when you said that, Billy McFarland. Do you know who I'm talking about? The
Yeah.
guy. Okay, so the guy. So for, and just to refresh anybody else, it's the guy who started, or was the, I would like to say brains, but there was no brains. He was the person, along with not T-Pain. What's his name? I can't think. There's a music star. Ludacris. Is it Luda?
Could have been.
Yeah, I think it was Ludacris. They started Fire Festival, a music festival, and it ended up being
Yeah.
a horrible nightmare. There was no accommodations. There was no.
It wasn't Ludacris. It was there's a guy from Murder Inc. You know, the guy who sang all those duets in the early 2000s.
Hold on.
I was just watching the thing on BET like last week called Murder Inc., the documentary.
Ja Rule.
Ja Rule, that's it.
That's who it is. Okay. So Firefest was like a horrible, horrible scheme, scam, everything else, right? Yep, Rowan got me. Ja Rule. But what a lot of people, well, I'm sure a lot of people know now from the documentary, but back then, what a lot of people didn't know about Billy McFarland was that he got in trouble. It was some white collar crime prior to this. He had many, many scams. He just wasn't punished hard enough. So he just kept going bigger and bigger. And, he created those, basically, I guess, like, I'm trying to think when it would have been. Early 2000s, probably. People started, the big deal was to have the, like a status symbol was to have the American Express black card. It had a nice weight to it. It was, thicker.
It was titanium.
Yeah. And, it just looked sophisticated and it got you privileges and stuff. So McFarland figured out a way to put basically a skin over cards to make them look like elitist. And he had this private social club that you could go to if you had these cards, and just got into a lot of trouble on that. And now I feel like it was years before Firefest, and he should have just really been done and cut off there. The potential, he's a smart guy, but just use your, sometimes you have to hand out sentences that make people say, I'm never going to do that again. And I know I'm smart. I'm going to use my stuff for good and not to defraud people.
Yeah, he had a whole life of crime before Firefest, and I don't think a lot of people realize just how deep he was into it.
Horrible things, and hung around a lot of other people. Like, he has connections to Anna Delvey, who's the Inventing Anna documentary on Netflix, and that'll be a good segue because I want to talk about that later. There's some stuff going on over there that's kind of interesting.
Amy, they should just call that documentary narcissism. Just one word.
I know. Are you stupid? What I said, we're gonna circle back. Oh, when you said Rico, it's so funny. I remember years and years ago, I knew this woman who was really intelligent. She was sort of a, kind of hate the word mentor because I feel like it's overused and pretentious, but I did look up to her. She was very successful, and I kind of mirrored some of the things she did because they worked well for her. And she gave me some good advice, like really good advice. And but she had these little dogs, all these little, they were there's miniature schnauzers, but it was somebody took a shrink gun to them.
Oh, a teacup.
Yeah, a teacup schnauzer, which I'd never heard of that. I had a teacup chihuahua, but I'd never seen a teacup schnauzer. I was like, wow, you can do this with anything? Huh. And they all had little names and Toot Toot and whatever. And I remember she was talking one day about Rico, and he's going to go Rico. And I thought she was talking about one of our dogs. It wasn't until like a year later I realized what it stood for and the context in the conversation. I just thought it was like, I was like, why is she talking about her dog all the time? And it ended up the dog's name was like Rocco and not Rico. But anyway, I felt like an idiot. Do you ever have those things where like years later, like it clicks in your head and you're like, oh my God, that's what was happening?
I'm still having experiences from childhood where I'm like, oh, that's what that meant.
Yeah. Like what? Give an example.
Oh,
Can you think of one? I'm not going to, like, if you can't.
yeah, I can't really think of one, but there's been several where I've like, I don't know, my parents used to tell me stuff, and then I used to, oh, actually, my grandfather used to go to England, and he'd always bring me back a soccer jersey from over there.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to tell me, he used to be really paranoid about buying like pirated goods or like, knockoff soccer jerseys. He's like, wow, these are the real ones. They cost like, £80 or whatever. And when I was a kid, I'd never heard of pirated goods. I was like, what is that? So I went around telling all my teachers that my grandfather had bought this from a pirate
Yeah.
and like got it all confused. And all these years later, I was like, geez, I was a funny little kid. Like, why did I think like that? But,
That's
you know,
fun.
so something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I can, yeah, that's along the lines of like some of the things that I've confused in my life. I know like, well, I can't think of anything specific right now, I guess. Um, except for like, I would hear now TV, like when I was growing up, isn't like it is now. Um, like right now you can say like bitch and you can say like sh, whatever. There's like a lot of things that you can say on TV that they get away with that did not happen in the 70s. But I do remember hearing on some show the word bastard, and because my parents didn't react to it, like we were crossing the street, we were in Houston visiting some family, we were going to the gallery at the ice skate. We were crossing Westheimer, which is like a really big street. And this, how like you step onto the curb, an adult throws their arm, you see
Yeah,
that?
to stop you.
Yeah. So I was like, you bastard. I was like 8. My mom was like, oh my God, where did you hear that? And I was like, it was probably on like Fantasy Island or something. Like, I don't know.
I feel like TV is so different these days. Some of the ads you see are so far different from what we would have had in the 90s and 80s. Like, I don't know if people remember, but when Baywatch came out, it was such a big deal to have like Anderson running around in like this like high cut Brazilian type swimsuit. And
Mm-hmm.
now you just got like ass everywhere and boobs and all sorts of stuff just on ads, and they're like talking about Viagra and all sorts of things. Like,
Yeah.
it's so, the standards have relaxed so much in the last 20 years. Some for good, some for bad, you know.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I haven't quite figured out like, I don't know. They show a lot more than they used to. I guess I'll say that. But since we were talking about Billy McFarland, I really wasn't going to bring him up. I'll skip over to, as I was saying, Anna Delvey, Inventing Anna. I think a lot of us watched that. Anna, her real name was Anna Sorokin. She was about 25 years old in New York City, actually all over the place, but mostly New York City. And she was claiming to be an heiress, running up hotel bills, trying to start the Anna Delvey Foundation, trying to get venture capitalists involved, until she got caught and went to Rikers. So Netflix, well, here's how this starts. New York Magazine was doing a big article on this. And a friend of Anna Delvey's, we'll say friend, she was somebody that ran around with her before she got caught. And the friend was defrauded out of $60,000 plus that she used to cover an expense on her credit card in order to kind of save herself in a foreign country, because she claims that Anna said she'd take her on vacation and then Anna couldn't pay for it. And so this girl, Rachel, used her work American Express card, her corporate card, to cover the fees at the hotel and some other places so that they could get out of the country, because otherwise they had security and kind of like police coming or whatever. What's interesting is when Anna Delvey or Anna Sorokin went to court, she was convicted on a lot of fraud charges. But as far as the charges of promising to pay for Rachel's vacation or coercing Rachel to use her credit card, threatening Rachel, anything of that sort, she was not convicted on those charges. It doesn't mean that she's not guilty. It just means that she wasn't convicted. So New York Magazine starts to do this big feature, right? And Rachel, who worked for Vanity Fair, she decided that she was going to do a first-person account and publish it in Vanity Fair. And that came out, like right before the other article. And she was paid for it. And there are some rumors that maybe the trouble that she got in with her company for using that corporate card, that money was refunded, but maybe the article kind of went a long way smoothing things over for her career-wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've definitely heard the same information that while she was maybe a victim at the time, now trying to play it off that she's still a victim is not really the actual reality of the situation, because people are saying that like her career and her profile has advanced so much because of Anna Delvey.
Mm-hmm.
That I've heard some people say, it's not my opinion, but I've heard some people say that she should just stop like presenting herself as a full victim now and
Mm-hmm.
just like kind of frame it as like I wasn't at that point, not I still am. But
Right.
it's not my story, it's hers, but that's the comments I've heard about it.
Right. So what I'm about to tell you is sort of along those lines. So Netflix puts out a 9, I don't know what you want to call it, segment episode series, Inventing Anna. And Anna Sorokin is paid right around $340,000 for that series. It had a very high viewership, and I believe they said in the first 11 days, the first 28 hours it was out, it was viewed like 11 million times.
It was quite successful. That money she was paid as well also got clamped on. It went to covering her bills that she hadn't paid, and
Right.
I don't think she got very much, but did she, Amy? It was like 10 grand or something.
I think it was a little bit more than that, but it was enough where she was where she actually had money to stay. She had good taste. She had excellent, exquisite taste. It was enough where she tried to go to some high-end hotels that she could pay for now, and she was unwelcome there.
Oh, they said we don't want you.
They said we don't want you. Mm-hmm.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, because that was like a big thing back then. So her friend's last name is Williams. So Rachel Williams writes the Vanity Fair article. It's successful. Of course, she's like, oh, my friend, and she defrauded everybody, and we were just like, oh my gosh, and everything else. And then she gets a book deal. Rachel Williams gets a book deal, and it's called My Friend Anna, and it's very, very successful. And everybody is hearing this story from Rachel's point of view as the friend, and she's doing, the things that people do, Good Morning America, book signings, what have you. And Rachel Williams, who by all accounts was working for a very reputable fashion magazine and had access to people that were famous and of means is now not a person that just has access. She's one of those people to a certain extent. Do you know what I'm saying? She's no longer like the
She's no
girl.
longer the girl next door.
She's not the girl at Vanity Fair that got the invitation.
Yeah, because she presented it like she was just this little intern at
Mm-hmm.
Vanity Fair and, you know, just kind of starting out in the world. But to have a credit card, a company credit card that could even charge something like 60 grand on it, you know, you must be pretty high, not high up, but, you know, you're not in the mailroom.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I think there are some things like that maybe we don't know the ins and outs of over there. Because I thought about that too. And if you're ever traveling abroad and you feel like you're in danger because you're being forced to pay money before you can leave a country or something like that, and and it's, you know what I mean, like strong armed or blocked in your hotel, especially with American Express, you can call them and they will over the phone authorize like a limit beyond what your limit is to get you out safely. It's part of being like a member. Now, not $500,000.
You're liable probably, but, you know.
Yeah, but you know they will do that. So we don't know the ins and outs of that. What we do know is that Netflix approaches Anna Delvey and they ask her, or Anna Sorokin, and they want the rights to her story, and Anna signs them over. And like you said, some of the money is used to pay off debts, and there's some left over for her. Now, Rachel, at the same time, is approached by a company owned by HBO, or a company that owns HBO Max. Okay, and she sells her story rights, but Netflix comes out first. Okay, in the meantime, Rachel is mad. Rachel is mad because the Netflix account, and you've got to realize that they probably approached her too, right? But she didn't want that. She wanted her other deal. Okay.
They probably didn't offer her something close to what the other one was offering because they already had Anna.
It was
so she wouldn't have got exclusivity or anything.
It was like $20,000 more, basically. We don't know that for sure, but that's a rumor. It was like $20,000 more. She sold hers to another company because she was going to have control. She was going to have some creative control, and it was going to be based on her book, I guess. And Netflix was like, "We're not basing it on your book," you know, because then they would have to deal with like what publishers, everything else, and it'd be hard to change anything they wanted to change because then it would conflict with Rachel's own account. So
yeah, it makes it more complicated.
Right. So the series comes out on Netflix and Rachel's mad. She feels like she's being portrayed as shallow, as a, what would you call it? Like a hanger-on friend. Like she's not really a victim so much because Anna was buying her clothes with, according to Anna anyway, and according to some other people, Anna was purchasing her clothes, handbags. She was a beneficiary of all of the things that Anna purchased fraudulently, or
yeah, like a friend for rent type thing.
Right. And on top of that, those charges for the Amex bill were, and the fact that Rachel said that, she had no choice but to use that card because Anna was forcing her to, and all this stuff. Anna wasn't convicted of it. So Rachel Williams is suing Netflix now. And the reason I bring this up is because somebody was telling me the other day about another Netflix lawsuit. And if you actually look it up, Netflix is sued quite a bit, like most companies are.
They like to work with original stories, and what ends up happening there, especially with personal stories, there's always more than one person involved outside of like the main party. And then they see the main party got some money, then they're like, well, how come something that happened to me as well is not giving me anything? And then they want some of it, and They get mad and they get lawyers and so on.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So I have the court documents up on the screen. If you look, they're 59 pages. So, like, we're not going to read them all. But it's Rachel Deloche Williams versus Netflix. And they're suing for defamation and false light, invasion of privacy, arising from knowingly false statements and attributions concerning plaintiff Rachel Deloche Williams. And the series entitled Inventing Anna, about a fraudster named Anna Sorokin, aka Anna Delvey. It said, this action will show that Netflix made a deliberate decision for dramatic purposes to show Williams doing or saying things in the series which portray her as greedy, snobbish, disloyal, dishonest, cowardly, manipulative, and opportunistic person, such as making a belittling remark to Sorokin's friend Neff because she worked in a hotel, and also calling Neff Sorokin's paid bitch. Sponging off Sorokin by accepting gifts of expensive clothes, jewelry, and accessories. Sponging off Sorokin by allowing her to pay for all of her drinks, meals, manicures, and saunas. Dropping Sorokin as a friend because Sorokin could no longer pay for her. Manipulating Sorokin to get her to pay for an expensive hairstyling for Williams. Abandoning Sorokin in Morocco, where she was left alone and in trouble. Encouraging Sorokin to book more lavish hotel suites while on a trip in Morocco. Running away when confronted. Lying to friends by concealing that she helped the police arrest Sorokin, and other contemptible conduct as set forth herein. In reality, she never did or said those things. Thus, this action is based firmly on statements of fact which are demonstrably false and the attribution of statements that she never made. And then they say, this like makes me laugh. It says, many media outlets commented on Netflix's hatchet job. Here are a few of those comments. So it's like other people are saying this. It's not just us. It's weird. In an article entitled Inventing Anna has a brutal vendetta against Rachel Deloche Williams. Is Netflix bitter she sold her story to HBO? The Independent wrote, Inventing Anna really, really wants us to hate Rachel Deloche Williams. Williams features as a character in Inventing Anna, a show which seems hell-bent on making her out to be the worst person in the world. These events are dramatized in Inventing Anna, only they appear to be staged with the primary purpose of making Williams look terrible. We received the message loud and clear. Rachel is a shady, social climbing hypocrite who got what was coming for her. The story inexplicably vilifies Rachel for helping to organize a sting operation to arrest Anna when the latter refuses to return the loan. Somehow Rachel is the villain for reporting a crime against her, while the criminal is made to look like the victim when she finally sees some sort of repercussions for her actions. So I'm going to stop right here because there's there's a list. There is a list here. Even when Rachel's claims that Anna forced her to use her corporate Amex card, which I'm sorry, how does anybody force you to use that? You know, when you get a business card, like a credit card for your job, you know that comes with a list of rules. And for most people, I've had them before. For most people, we know that if I'm in the airport and I'm buying a plane ticket or something, like that's okay. That's what it's for, right? I'm paying for my hotel. But if I buy a Diet Coke on that thing, I'm stealing from my company and I could be fired. It's that serious. It's extremely serious the way they itemize those bills. And when you use expense account systems like Concur and you have to match them up to who you're meeting with, what you were doing, how many people are on the table, have everybody sign the receipt. Like they don't F around with that stuff.
Finance will come for you very quickly.
Yeah. Most companies don't mess around. You have basically 15 days from the end of the month to get your expenses done so that they can reimburse that card and they catch things. So, it's kind of like, how did that even come into play? We see it in Netflix. We don't know if that's really how it happened, or we see it in the Netflix series, but whatever. But ultimately, when Anna Sorokin was in court, like I said, one of the things she was found not guilty of was that. And so when that news came out, I guess, in this court proceeding, they're very angry because some of the headlines read, Anna Delvey was found not guilty of robbing this greedy clown Rachel. So I'll kind of stop right here because I read about 7 different articles on this today, and I did read through the entire lawsuit. And I will, I'm going to fix our description tonight. I'm going to fix our title and our thumbnail and everything else. Bear with me, and I'm human, and sometimes things just happen. But I always say, if I'm going to put something in the description, I will. So if you want to read this lawsuit, you can. I'll link it so you can read it. I think the problem here is that Rachel Williams, regardless of whether she's completely innocent and a stand-up person and just lovely to be around, or she's a nasty hanger-on, a parasite, or somewhere in the middle, for a very long time, Rachel had control of the narrative. And she was the only one who had control of the narrative. And she got paid to have control of the narrative. And I wonder if there is not pressure on her because it has taken HBO Max so long to put together something on Anna Delvey that, and maybe working with Rachel and what they can put in and what they can't, or I don't like this, or I don't like that this is like a lawsuit to not only gain publicity for her own series, but because Rachel just doesn't like not being in control of, not being the only person telling the story.
Yeah, because if you think about it, in the early days, Anna was actually, she couldn't really talk. She was in prison.
She
And I
was a
think she only had,
non-person.
she only had like 1 interview from there. So where did they go after that? They start looking for people who are associated with her, and they found Rachel. And she did a lot of interviews. I think she did Dateline, she did ABC, a bunch of others.
Rachel goes all over the place. Rachel got a makeover. Rachel got a lot of, I mean, like I said, she wasn't just the girl that because she worked at Vanity Fair got invited to the party. She was now invited because she was Rachel fucking Williams, friend of Anna Delvey.
And I think part of it was her job too. Because if she was working at Kmart, I don't think she would have had half the things happen to her after that she did.
No, I don't think she would have either. And, she put herself out there too. That's the other thing. When you put yourself out on the internet, or you write a book, or even doing this, you do it knowing that you're under scrutiny for how you look, how you dress, how you talk, what you produce, everything. And I hate to sound really, really bitter, but when I was reading all this stuff today, my intuition is pretty good. I don't always listen to it in my own life. That's my Achilles heel, I guess, or what do you call it? My fatal flaw, my toxic trait. I see red flags in people.
Sounds good.
And I look the other way because I'm just like, oh, I don't want to believe that, or I try to make it work in my head. Like, oh, it's not really this, it must be this, until it's too late. But my intuition is pretty good. And so, although I feel badly saying this tonight because I might find out something in 2 days that will change my mind, and I will own it and admit it. But right now, I think little Miss Rachel just doesn't like being portrayed as Little Miss Perfect, that she got used to being portrayed as the darling on all the morning shows, and like you said, on 2020 and 48 Hours and everything else. And sorry, honey, you put yourself out there. Not everybody's going to like you. They may have attacked you even if you weren't in the Netflix documentary. I think one of the main things she's angry about, as listed in this suit, is that the only two names they used that were 100% accurate were Anna Delvey, Anna Sorokin, and Rachel Williams. And she's like, well, why? They changed everybody else's name. Because you wrote a damn book. That's why.
Because you put yourself out there before they even made it. So if they had come with a pseudonym name, everyone would have been like, why'd they change her name? We already know who she is.
Right. I like Petunia's comment. It says, what about personal responsibility when it comes to the credit card? I wouldn't have considered that Anna's problem in court either. It's not. It wasn't. And Miss Peaches writes something interesting too. Anna was asked if she was sorry for what she had done, and if she responded no. She said even her time in jail was fodder for her upcoming book. Yeah, Anna is I saw her say no to several people too. I saw one interview when they were like, are you sorry for what you did? And she's like, for what? For what? And they're like, defrauded people. She's like, no, they were stupid. Stupid. She's just like, yeah. I'm not going to say this or not. I have to tell you, she's fascinating to watch. Anna Delvey's fascinating to watch. I'm not going to say that she's the criminal you love to hate. There is something fascinating about her.
She just comes across as a narcissist to me, that everyone else is the issue. I was only doing what I had to survive, and everyone else is the issue, not me.
Totally. I agree with you. But still, just watching her in action is like, it's gold. I mean, it wasn't a victimless crime. It was, she deserved to be punished. She deserved to go to Rikers. She deserved everything she got in the end. But it makes for a fascinating story.
Is she in Europe now? Did she get deported?
I believe she did get deported. I needed to check that before we came on, and let me see. I will check right now.
I mean, at least her court case gave her what she always wanted, which was she wanted to be famous, and now she is.
Yep. Oh my God. I wrote Departed. Let's do Departed.
That's a different show. That's about Matt Damon.
Yeah. So let's see. She was deported to Germany. Yeah. Oh, wait.
And if she ever wanted to come back to the States, I think because she actually had a deport on her name, she probably has a exclusion period too.
Nope, she's still waiting an appeal on the deportation.
So she's still in America?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If she gets a deport, she'll have an exclusion period too, which means she won't be able to attempt to enter the USA. It could be 5 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 1 year. I don't know how long it's up to the court.
So as of the end of July, so like a month ago, there was an article that says Sorokin's current attorneys claim that the Outcast Socialite's former lawyer had refused to turn over her court file despite countless requests for cooperation in their attempts to keep her on U.S. soil. Manhattan Judge Diane Kiesel ruled in her favor on Wednesday, ordering that the former attorney Audrey Thomas turn over the relevant paperwork. Let's see. Attorney Duncan Levin told the Daily Beast that while Thomas initially told the court she did not have any documents in connection with Sorokin's case, under questioning for the judge, she admitted to having boxes and boxes. She had to have them there by August 5th, so they didn't give her very much time. So yeah, it's all on appeal, so she's still here.
I hate when I'm not saying I'm on Anna Delvey's side, but I hate when the state or the Crown or whatever, they love to play this tactic where they try and hide things from the defendant, and they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, we don't have that. We don't have X, Y, Z. We don't know what you're talking about." And then as soon as the trial's over, they're like, "Oh, look what we found. We found all these phone records," and it's
Yeah.
got to stop. It happens a lot in a lot of cases, and it's really a nasty tactic.
Okay, so this is I don't think I explained it right, and I don't think I personally understood it for what it was. So the deportation case is delayed. It's in a holding pattern because Anna is appealing the charges she was convicted on. Okay, she has a new attorney, and this other her past attorney's last name was Thomas, right? So they don't have her new attorneys don't have all the files from her old attorney, right? And it says, um, so that's delaying things, and that's one of the hearings they had, and the judge agreed, like, you need to get that over there because we need to get this ball rolling. And so it says, when Thomas, who is the old attorney, it says, when Thomas and Sorokin parted ways this spring, the lawyer called her ex-client an ungrateful bitch in the interview with the Insider. She added that her experience with Sorokin was a reminder to eschew the evil that she tries to inspire me and all who try to help her. So yeah, her her old lawyer does not have a great opinion of her, although she
Her
wrote.
old lawyer's probably like, "Thank God she's gone."
Yeah, yeah. I imagine it's probably the way like uh, a lot of people feel about defending like Casey Anthony, although I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say names because I don't even want to get into that. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens because I really don't have much empathy for Rachel Williams, and you know, if if you didn't choose the right person to produce your life story or the right publisher for your book, or you don't have the right publicist or whatever, that's not like Anna
She,
committed
she made her
crimes.
bed basically, and she's got to lie in it now.
Yeah, Anna committed crimes, but as far as like being a narcissist, Rachel's just as narcissistic. If this is the little tantrum she's
Oh
been
yeah, she put across this whole baby doll image,
through. Hmm.
and this whole like, "Oh, I'm just the little girl next door, and I've been so hurt and victimized," and it's like, woman, it's like 5 years later, like you're doing all right.
Hmm. Yeah, she's fine. Um, I will say, if you guys want to read something interesting, it is a very, very the court filing reads like a short story. It's probably the best thing I've read about the two of them anywhere. It's just
She
kind of
might be doing
unbelievable.
this to add it to her own HBO thing. They're like, "We
Oh no,
need some
that's
more
exactly what
drama."
she's doing. That's exactly what she's doing. It's the same way she released her article on the eve of New York Magazine doing it when she wasn't going to do anything. She wanted to stay quiet. Mm-mm. She purposely did that. Now she's doing this right as her HBO series is supposed to come out. I mean, there's some timing here, and this lawsuit is so petty. Like, I'll tell you, on page 11, there's a part where it says, at the beginning of the series, at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, they feature photographs of Katie Lowes, the actress who plays Williams in the series, under a fake Instagram account entitled Real Rachel Williams. At the end, it shows a photograph of the real Rachel Williams under the same fake Instagram account, with text stating that the book was a success, and next to a photograph of Katie Lowes and the actress who plays Sorokin. And then they go like through this whole thing. Episode 9 at 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 34 to 36 seconds. See Exhibit 1. I mean, it's blurring the boundaries between fact and fiction.
It's a
And
promo.
yes, that's exactly what it is. It's a total promo. And, like, and I gotta tell you, like, I can't call it on this particular case, but the subject of people suing Netflix came up the other night with somebody, and I had mentioned that previously. Netflix gets sued all the time over stuff like this. They barely even entertain it.
Yeah, they got lawyers for this stuff. They got a whole room of them.
Yeah.
But Amy, I was going to say, you know, have you ever watched a true crime documentary and they have like some obscure person who was slightly involved and they're like the main subject of the documentary? And you're
Yeah.
like, why are you bringing me this person? I want to know from the main people. Like, why are you bringing me like the uncle who knew them for like a month?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? And it's like, you want to hear from the actual person who was involved in the majority of it. That's kind of how it feels with her. It's like, yeah, we heard from you. We heard your side. Go away. We want to hear from Anna. And that's why the Netflix one will always be a much bigger success.
Well,
Because, she had her moment.
She did. She had her moment. She controlled the narrative. She was the only person talking. She could say whatever she wanted. And that was all we had to go on. Because we didn't have access to anybody else. And you're right. There's a couple networks. I'm not going to name them, but they'll do things like like Valo will be one of them at some point. They're going to be the cases that we all remember. And years after the trial, in order to create revenue or because there's still an interest in that case, people always want to hear more. They'll do something where it's like, Friends of Lori Vallow talk. And you're like, ooh, I watch that. But it's like, I painted Lori Vallow's toes at the salon down the street 4 times back in 2017. And
totally
then
not related. It's
like,
Sunday night. What's that girl's name that does all the? It's like, Diane Sawyer. Diane Sawyer speaks to the friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's like they're not really friends. They're just. I mean, sometimes there are, but a lot of times it's like randos. They're like, well, when the Iceman used to go out of town, he paid me $10 to pick up his mail, and I did that once. And then another time, his dog, got loose, and I caught him.
One time, he bought a hot dog from me, and I'm sure it was him. He had the same beard.
Yes. Kind of like, was it Mean Girls? This one time, I saw Regina George wear like this, and so I wore it. It's kind of like that. Like they're latchers on to cases. Like they don't really have anything to do with it or whatever. And I think Rachel's just mad that she's not Queen Bee anymore, and that somebody has the opportunity to say like, basically, can you say that? I think it's okay. Sorry. I think it's interesting that she's not suing Anna Delvey. Well, or Anna Sorokin. One, she doesn't have any money, so she's going to sue Netflix. But also that she seems to think that nobody can tell a different story of what happened. She's the only official person that can tell this story. And if you don't tell it Rachel's way, then it's just not true. And there's things that she's contesting about what's true and not true that nobody can prove. It's just your word against somebody else's.
And they have the same right as you do to tell the story and tell the other side of what they think is like things you've left out or just the other side of how they experienced it. They have every right. So I don't know. I can't see this lawsuit going anywhere really.
Me either, but I'm going to watch it. And you guys definitely read it. It's a good read. It's a really good read. For those of you that don't like, listening to podcasts, and I get it. I personally do, but I know a lot of people that don't. My husband can't do it. But my stepdaughter and I are addicted. This is a good read. It reads like a very, very long magazine article, and it's entertaining, if anything. And I don't have a really good opinion. I don't know. Maybe I just don't like whiny. But as far as Rachel's concerned, I think that's her problem. So anyway, That's my 2 cents on that. Oh.
Yep. We'll wrap that one up. You
Yeah.
know, there's been some. I know there's going to be a lot of people. One of our people at Watch here called Swift As is probably just dyingly waiting for me to talk about Lynn Dawson. But I really want to give it justice to the whole case, because if I just go, hey, yesterday the verdict for Lynn Dawson, is Lynn Dawson's disappearance/murder was read out, no one here, or very few people here, is probably going to understand what I'm talking about. So
Right. You have to kind of tell the story so that we know. Because I
yeah,
think
and it
right now,
it's going to take some time.
I'm not sure
So
if he even knows who Lynn Dawson is.
no, so it's coming. I'm working on a script for it now, and maybe Thursday or something we might do it. But it's a long story. There's a lot of like convoluted stuff like through it. So, but it's coming. So Swift Ads, if you're out there, it's on its way.
Can you just give them a? Can you tell them who Lynn Dawson is and like what the crime is, and kind of leave it at that, so people have enough, or if they want to look out on their own, they can do that. And I'll drop an article in the
So
too.
Lynn Dawson was a lady who was married to quite a famous sports star down here. She went missing from her home, or from her life and family, 30 years ago. So there's some weird facts in the case. Her husband at the time was actually, he was no longer in his sporting kind of career. He had transitioned to teaching kids sport and stuff like that. And he'd formed an infatuation with a teenage girl at the high school, and he had sort of groomed her and got her into the marital home, to the point where the wife Lynn knew that he was basically diddling a teenage girl on the side, and in the marital home. And then all of a sudden, Lynn went missing, and suddenly the teenage girl moves into the home, and then later on they get married. And Lynn isn't heard of since. And for 30 years, he's been repeating the line that she left one day to go to the shops or something, and she rang him and said that, oh, I just want some space and I'm going to be back at, in the future at some point. But we will go in more into the proper timeline and stuff when I do the rundown of it. But
Yeah.
it's a very interesting case. The fact we finally got a judge to have a look at all the facets of the case and all the different things. I can tell you something from yesterday. The judge was very unimpressed with there was a podcast called Teacher's Pet in Australia. It actually was not released in Australia originally. It was they actually released it overseas at one point because they didn't want to corrupt the jury over here, or corrupt any further court proceedings. But obviously people in Australia know how to get around things, and I think eventually it was released here. But the judge was really unimpressed. He mentioned them by name in the court proceedings, and I think it'll be something to explore, because it was almost like a line in the sand was drawn in this new age of true crime about, covering these cases that are still not reached a conclusion, about what you can say, who you can interview, the things you can say. And yeah, I thought the judge was like, be careful. If you're going to make one of these podcasts, you should be careful, because it can influence a trial. Due to, there were certain facts and things that they didn't want to consider, because of just the way it had been presented through the media and stuff like that. So very interesting, and I'll do a bit more research on his reasonings and stuff. I'm still waiting. I don't think he's released his reasonings yet, even though I did listen to it. It went for 5 hours yesterday. The final wind up of just the judge talking was 5 hours. And
I know you sent me the link, and I'll be honest, I read the recap this morning because that's the link you sent me, right? The one that you're talking about?
yeah, so it was a live link. I don't know if it's still up there, But I did
It went on and
watch
on
it.
and on, and I was like, okay, like, because I have the attention span of a gnat.
It's like the last 5 minutes is all you need to hear, really. He
Yeah,
went on for like hours. It was like,
yeah,
I got to admit, the judge is a very good judge, but he's not a very good public speaker, I have to say,
very
because
droll.
he spoke like this. He's just like, and then Lynn went down to the shops. We
Yeah.
had a look at it, and on
Well,
Thursday she went like this. It was really bad.
they're also, because your court system, they're in the wigs and everything, and he's like this, and am I wrong? He was like hunched over the whole time. Like,
Yeah, he also had issues. I think must have had issues, either with his glasses or the font or something, because he kept misstepping I think he was losing his place. He had a folder in front of him, right? And it
yeah,
was like a telephone book, and
yeah,
that's what he had to read through for 5 hours.
it was insane. Like, I had it up. I had my phone like on a stand or whatever, and I was working on something else, and I would look over, and he'd be like this, and it's just like, okay, all right, no, nope, 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 and very droll. Like, Ping's got it right. Like, just very not a lot of voice inflection. Didn't look up. Didn't. I mean, of course, he's not there to entertain anybody, but it was difficult to listen to.
Yeah, if you're going to go for 5 hours, at least have some sort of expression.
Yeah,
I think the only time he had any kind of like emotion or anything was when he was speaking directly at Chris Dawson.
yeah,
And he was like, yeah, there was a few interesting points in that. The claims of domestic violence were thrown out, or not thrown out, but like not considered. There was a whole bunch of interesting things. So I don't know if they did that to limit the avenues of appeal, so that so he couldn't come back and then use that as an avenue to appeal whatever.
right.
So yeah, there was a bunch of interesting stuff, but he's taking a while. There's something to do with the children's court. So in Australia, in the children's court, there's a lot of that stuff is sealed because it's got to do with minors.
Right.
There's some sort of provision in the children's court, meaning he has to go back to his reasoning that he was going to release yesterday and change something. I don't know what it is, but he was mentioning it at the end. So we might have to wait a little bit longer until we get his written PDF.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing you recap it, because it's something to hear it coming from you, and you can answer some of these questions like Tracy L is asking, which I kind of want to know too. Is it just tradition that they still wear wigs, or is it have some other like symbolism, like to? I mean, I know it doesn't protect the judge's identity or anything, but like, what do you know? Why you all still do that?
I actually don't fully know why, but I would probably suggest it's like in England they do it as well. It's probably got to do with tradition, and it probably does symbolize something. And he had an interesting one. His one was sort of fluffy,
It
sort of like a
was.
little afro, and then he had like a plait down the middle, and I hadn't seen one like that before.
Yeah, you kind of had a funky. I said funky. I really, really did. It just. Okay, let me tell you guys. And that's supposed to eat bread. And yesterday, I had a piece of toast, and I don't know if this ever happened to you. It tore up the roof of my mouth. Have you ever had that happen with like cereal or like? Do you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, I've had that with like we have like what you guys consider cookies, but in Australia they're a lot harder than what you would consider cookies. We call them biscuits, and they're quite rough. And like a few times I've even cut open my mouth a couple of times on them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that little piece of skin behind your two front teeth that comes down into a V.
yeah, you always nick it. I've nicked mine a few times, or I've drank like hot coffee or hot soup and just scalded like all the back of my teeth and mouth and stuff. Oh fuck, that hurts.
Okay, it does. So I have this whole little area right here, and it's making me talk weird. So I apologize if you see me like hit a few words differently or whatever tonight.
If she starts speaking Spanish, we know we have an issue.
It's like a weird, like, I don't know, crime scene in there right now, and I can't, like, where the tip of my tongue there usually hits to articulate something. It's not. In fact, before or earlier today, I went to go tell Chris I'm running to Walgreens. I'm like, I'm running to Walgreens. But the way it came out is I'm running to Walgreens. And I was like, silly wabbit, Drano. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, what's wrong? He's like, I have to make fun of myself before you do.
You should just pretend that you're like a Southern woman, and then you can just say whatever.
Like, yes, Sour Patch Kids will do it too.
Those lollies strip my
Yep.
tongue because of the acidic. They got some of them have like a real high acidic content, like a citric
Yeah.
acid content,
Yeah.
and they always strip my tongue for like a couple of days if I eat like, I don't know, a whole bag or something.
Yeah. Everybody's saying Captain Crunch cough drops. I've had that because they get like a little, like they're
You get
not.
the nick on the hard lolly,
Yeah.
and then it rubs. Yeah.
Yep. So cough drops. Tracy's down with the toast, and then
You know what's interesting? In Australia, we only get watermelon and the mixed bag of Sour Patch Kids. We don't get the Halloween ones. We don't get the other flavors. We only have like two. Oh, they did bring out some like extra sour ones or something recently, but we don't get like the tropical or anything like that.
You were telling me that the other day because so our Sour Patch Kids, I think they come because my kids love them and my husband likes them, and I'm not a big candy eater, but I do like gummy bears and I do like Sour Patch Kids. And I was telling Ping the other night, my husband and I went on like a little like mini trip, not like we went to go visit family, and I'd taken like a bag of gummy bears, like regular gummy bears, and then mixed it with Sour Patch Kids. And like he just thought like I invented something so amazing.
Is this cereal?
I
Is
know.
this food?
It's like, oh god. I'm like, yeah, babe, pour some Diet Coke on it. Let's go. But I don't think we have a lot of variations. Like there's a lot on the actual Sour Patch Kids. There's other Sour Patch candy or other sour candy, but not really the Sour Patch Kids, except for one thing. Like they don't do Halloween and Christmas or anything. Like they come in red, blue, yellow.
No, they do. They do Halloween ones in the States.
Really? I've never seen
Yeah,
those.
yeah, yeah. They have ones that look like zombies, and they look like half a body, and you can get like heads and only like you can get like the head and feet, and they're cut in half.
For that, I do that myself. That's half the fun. Like bite their heads off. But they do make right now. They have these bags that are like one solid flavor, so you can buy like it says Sour Patch. I realize now it doesn't say kids. It says Sour Patch, and then it's cherry. Sour Patch Grape, which is a flavor that's not usually in there, and Peach, I think, is another one, which are kind of like the Haribo.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, but with like citric acid on it. And so the kids convinced me to buy the bag of grape, and I did, and I ate one. And let me tell you, first of all, you know, Sour Patch Kids are like this big.
Yeah, they're only little. Yeah,
little, which is probably why I like them because I don't like a lot of sweet stuff. These are like twice the size. And oh my god, the grape tastes like garbage. I mean, they're
grapes are funny flavor.
Yeah.
You either get like really nice grape, like grape hubba bubba, or you get like grape and it tastes terrible.
Yep. Oh, okay. There's other stabby things we have to talk about.
French fries are good.
Mm-hmm. And yes, peekaboo cockatiel. Tongue in the roof of your mouth on hot chocolate. When the kids were little, I used to call it, well, I always called it for myself, but I taught it to them. I was like, oh, that means you have cat tongue. Because to me, when you burn your tongue, it feels like what it must feel like to be a cat with that rough tongue. So we call it cat tongue in my house.
Yeah, I've heard that expression before. Miss Peaches, I want to talk about that just for a second.
Yeah.
Danielle Laidley. I'm not sure what you'd like me to comment on about it, other than she is a well-respected woman in Victoria, is considered sort of like a local hero here, who has gone through sort of a hard transition and a hard past for the last 10 or 15 years. And I think the things that had happened to her while she was in custody were disgusting. I think taking photos of her in, I'll use air quotes, I know you can't see it, but in drag or in her female persona, or whatever the female, as a female, Um, I thought that was disgusting. It wasn't very nice, and I thought the fact that they passed it around the police and things like that was, you know, and it made it online like in a minute. I was able to find that photo within an hour of
I
the
would,
arrest.
I don't know who that is. Who is?
So Daniel Laidley was a AFL footballer, originally a man,
Oh,
who is now presenting as a female.
okay.
When she was arrested, she was in the female dress and as makeup and shoes and things like that, and the police officers took photos of her
Mm,
because everyone had known her as her male
mm-hmm.
person, not as the female person. No one apparently it was an open secret within the AFL community and the local area, but it sort of hadn't got out of there. And then when she was arrested, a police officer took a photo from the intake, and then it spread online it was everywhere within an hour through the football world.
So they exploited her.
Basically, yeah.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Um, how long ago was that?
Maybe a couple of years ago or a year ago. It wasn't that long ago.
About the same time as, and when I say this name, I'm not insinuating or saying or stating that Caitlyn Jenner, who was formerly Bruce Jenner, was in any sort of trouble with the law. But was it maybe around the same time as that was going on over here?
It could have been, but I don't think it had any relation.
Yeah.
I think it was more the fact that because that person was so well known as their male, person, when they presented as a female of being arrested, it was just such big news.
Right.
It was such a shock to a lot of people, I think.
So
And
they tried to make a freak show out of it.
basically, yeah. And the photo was not very flattering. It was, I think she had a wig off and she had like the hairnet on
Mm-hmm.
and the makeup and
Wig cap.
because you can't have a wig in prison, I guess.
Right.
So she had just had the wig, like the stocking thing over the head and the eyeshadow and things like that.
That's terrible. I think before we almost ready to wrap up, do you think?
Yeah, I think we're almost done for the night.
Okay. So before we wrap up for the night, a couple little things. I think probably we will not talk about Kylie Rodney again until they come back with toxicology or a statement.
Some sort of new information.
So there's another, because there is a lot of, and I know because I've heard from some of you already, I know there's a lot of drama and there's undercurrent and there's a lot of rumors going on right now. It's very, very unfortunate. And it's just not anything that we're going to talk about here or that I'm comfortable talking about anyway. And I probably, and I apologize to you, Ping, I probably should have said something to you before the show about it. But it's just not, it's not respectful to anybody, the family, any of the agencies involved, anything. So and now,
let the facts play out. And
yeah.
then when the truth is well known, we'll talk about it a bit more. But at this stage, with how stupid it is, it's better just to let people make fools of themselves in their own time, and then we'll look at it when everything's all official.
Yeah. So when you see, just know that when you see big people and big thing, really big people and really big things on Twitter talking and sparring and accusing each other and what have you, just we're not going to talk about that. We could
Not
talk
something
about
we're interested in, really.
No. And then the second thing I was going to ask you guys is, I'm not really, I just want to kind of take a pulse on this subject. Ping, did you see that Brittany Spears put out some things on YouTube the other night?
I did. I saw she put out like a bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it, a bit of a statement about why she is not doing like a paid interview with Diane Sawyer or something to tell about her story of when she was in her mental health thing. And I thought it was very brave of her to skip all that
Yeah,
and then take control of her own narrative and then just be like, I'll do it myself. Which I like the way she's doing it. I think
I do too.
it's her way of feeling like she's in control, and if that's the way she feels she needs to do it to feel in control of her life, then all for it. Let her do whatever she needs to.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think not sure I was that invested in it where I would like. I mean, I followed it, but where I really, really wanted to go look at different things, and now I'm kind of there, and I'm just wondering if anybody else has any interest in it because oddly enough, her assistant, who apparently she trusted and respected, um, there's been a falling out somewhere, and her assistant no longer works with her, and Brittany has unfollowed her, and her husband has unfollowed her. And then some people online are talking about how this is really scary. They're saying that Brittany is still being controlled. This has all been a snow job. They gave her a little bit of freedom, but she doesn't really have it. And the assistant is liking those Instagram comments. Like,
If that was true, this would be one of the biggest scandals maybe ever. If
well,
that's ever confirmed.
I think it might be coming because there was a gentleman that came out today. It was around 4:30 or 5 my time. I caught it while we were running errands in the car. While my husband was trying to kill us in traffic and not kill us, he's trying to kill me, give me a heart attack. So I try to read my phone so I don't have to look out the window. And he used to be part of her security team. And
I know who that is. Yeah.
yeah, and he's come out and speaking about some things. Now, again, these are first person accounts, but for somebody that says yes, they signed an NDA, and I don't care, I'm going to talk about it. It's kind of like, because even somebody interviewing somebody violating an NDA can get themselves into trouble.
So what I don't understand though, she had her her court thing released, so she got released from that arrangement.
Right.
How is she being controlled then? With her children, or like how is that control happening?
That maybe they have their hands on her husband somehow. I don't know. I don't know, but it doesn't sound conspiracy theory to me. It really, really.
There might be still some tentacles that are being controlling, because I don't think after 15 years of being in that type of situation and arrangement that all those tentacles just release after the court says, okay, it's all over. She's got
That's what I was
She's got
thinking.
things tied into her money, into her business, into her career, her
Yeah,
homes, and health and stuff. So there's probably maybe still some things that need to be unraveled to
that's
get her truly free.
that's kind of what I was along the lines of what I was thinking. What you just said, because I don't know another way to put it, but like this plan, this conservatorship was so elaborate and so well executed for so long that you can imagine there's probably people who have financially benefited from it in the past who are deeply embedded and maybe she never thought were involved in it, but they were. Because she talks about in these tapes that she just released, she talks about how she loves her dancers and stuff, but her dancers saw her being abused and looked the other way because they were well paid. And because her dad would pay for them to go to have drinks afterwards or a really nice dinner while she was like locked in her room.
I think one of the things that you can tell just how unhappy with the situation she was, it's when she had the Vegas residency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all know that she's a workaholic and she'll put herself 110% into all her projects because it's her image going out there to the public. But when she went to do the second stint in Vegas, and then she came out, waved at the crowd, and then just left, and then 10 minutes later they're like, oh, the residency is not going ahead for the second time. I think that was one of the most telling moments of the entire thing, at just one, how controlled she was, because she still had to go out there. Like, if that was
Mhm.
just somebody who didn't want to do it anymore, they'd just make a phone call and be like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this anymore.
Exactly.
I don't want to deal. The
Yeah.
fact she still had to go out there and that was her only way of protest. I
Yeah.
mean, you know.
Well, and they sent, what was it? She said, I've heard her say this, and I've heard other people saying this, that she would say, I don't like that dance move. I don't want to do that dance move. Or I don't want to do that song tonight or whatever. And everybody would kind of be like, uh-oh, she's not doing what she's supposed to do. And so they'd be like, go get Jamie. And like her
Up the
sister would come
lithium,
out.
up the lithium.
Yeah, Jamie would come and, take care of it. Jamie was a
So
henchman.
I don't know if you've ever watched any of the Britney Spears documentaries that have come out, not the new ones, like, but back
Oh, I watched the
maybe
old
like
one. Yeah.
yeah, there's one that came out like, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it was called, whether it was like called 100% Britney or something like that. Anyway, I watched it, and there's a scene that they pull from that documentary that they often use in the new ones about it, like, her conservatorship,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the one where she starts talking about how unhappy she is, and then she's like, "Oh, I want my phone, Dad." Like, he's like, "Oh, give me the phone," and she's like, "No, you ain't touching my phone," and it just showed you how unhappy of a person she was, and that was during the very early years of her conservatorship.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, I mean, I'm not her doctor, I'm not I'm not an expert or anything, but to me, like, with the little exposure that we have to her, what I see in her is a stunted maturity level. And I don't mean like in the work ethic department. I mean just as a social human being.
Yes, definitely. I think because she was taken onto the road so early in her life, she missed out on a lot of natural growing up steps as a person. And I think you
Right.
see that in her behavior and some of her personality too, in the way she deals with some conflict and some like issues and things like that. And if you've ever watched some of the documentaries of the behind the scenes stuff with her, you'll see it. And like she'll act like an 8-year-old, and she would just scream and shout, kind of have a tantrum when she wants something. And it's not
Well,
like she's a diva. It's just
no.
that's all she knows.
Well, and the baby voice too. The baby voice, not to sound like Dr. Drew Pinsky or Dr. Phil or any of the other ones, Dr. Oz, that you hear say this, but the baby voice is usually a dead sign that there's some sort of abuse going on. And it's usually sexual abuse too, on top of it. So whether she was exploited or whether she was essayed by her family or somebody in the industry, I think, or they've asked her to, that's a persona they wanted her to play. And that's even sicker. That they
I
like,
would not be surprised if there was some casting couch type
mhm.
sexual abuse that happened with her, because she
Yes.
was shipped off to New York at like 14 and just thrown into like auditioning and things
Mhm.
like that. And the only person that was with her was her assistant, or like that lady. You know the lady who says she was the assistant, and then she's been cut out of the circle now. She's
Mhm.
got the big curly hair. I think it
Mhm.
was only her that with her and Brittany in New York. It was just them two. So I would not. It would not shock me that, especially with the things we're finding out about casting. Well, there's a reason there's a thing called the casting couch, and everyone knows what that innuendo means.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, and then we'll wrap it up. But somebody sent me this article the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, like I've been hearing about this. Um, Women that are in positions that or have careers where they get gratuities or tips. There's like a trend going around, like experiment how you wear your hair, and then compare in relationship of how you wore your hair to the number of tips you got. But you have to be fair about what kind of night it is. Like if you're at a bar and it's like a big night at the bar, like you can't say, oh well, you know what I mean. Like you got to keep it like in
Yeah,
perspective.
I know what you mean.
But these women are finding out, or a majority of them are reporting, that when they wear their hair in 2 pigtails on the top of their head or 2 braids, that's where they make the most money.
Gross. I
Yeah.
don't even like my wife wearing her hair like that.
Chris
Because it's
doesn't
just too
either.
little girl. It's just,
Yeah.
it's like, are you 8 or something? It's like, no.
Yeah, I know. I had mine like low the other day, like this, because it was hot. And he was like, "Why do you have your hair like that?" It's like, I don't want to.
I mean, not that I tell my wife how to wear her hair or anything.
Oh
She
no,
can
he
do what she
doesn't
wants.
either. But
I
he
just
was.
always go, it looks a little weird, like you're a 40-year-old woman.
Yeah. Well, no, that's basically what he was. He was like, you don't. What did he say? He's like, you don't look bad. He's like, it's just kind of gross. It's a little girl's hairstyle. And I was like, well, I've got 90 pounds of hair on my head. Like, I'm just trying to get it. And he's like, can you find another way? He's like, I don't want to be attracted to a little girl hairstyle. Like,
Yeah, I noticed because Mrs. Ping plats her hair before bed because she doesn't want it to tangle at night.
squirrel. Yeah.
But that's fine. But like no pigtails or like
Yeah. But it's really, really gross. And when you think about the baby video and the pom poms and the ponytails or whatever,
Oh,
it's
they were definitely trying to send a message with that video.
yeah, it's not no bueno. So on that note,
I do think I'll just say one little thing before
yeah,
we wrap up. I do think that if you look through her career, the sexualization of her and how fast it ramped up really
oh,
tells the story.
yeah, she went from Disney to, and I'm not trying to insult her when I say this, but Disney to like borderline rated R movie, innuendo, the snake on her and half naked and the low everything. She went from like super clean cut image in her denim tuxedo to like slutty cute.
Yeah, well, you look from Baby One More Time, and then you look at I'm a Slave for You, and
Yeah.
look at how fast that transition was.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more boob, a lot more butt, a lot more tighter clothing. And I mean, that's not a bad thing. We're not slut shaming anyone.
No,
I'm just saying,
no.
I just thought there was a very fast sexualization with her image very quickly.
Yeah.
But if
Especially,
that's what she wanted, fine. But like, I'm just, it's just
yeah.
something you notice.
It was just, you're right. There was no transition. It was like A to B without the pancake tour. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
we just found ourselves there. So, let us know if you have any interest in that. I'm gonna look at it on my own, but if you guys want to follow something like that deeper a little bit here and there, let us know. Always, 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 always. We communicate in the comments right now because we do not have that community page. We're working towards 500. Let us know what you think about. Maybe changing the name. I don't know. Ultimately that's Ping and I's decision, but some feedback on how you feel about it. If you like this video, one of the many ways you can help us is by giving us a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribe, share our videos. Roy, thank you so much. I saw you I'm sorry. Oh my God. I dox people. Somebody that watches our channel was very, very, very kind and was sharing our videos and writing really nice things on Twitter and Facebook about what a great channel we are. And I when I read it, I want you to know it meant a lot to me. So thank you. And I know it means a lot to Ping too. So
It does. Thank you. I also want to say thank you to the people who subscribed since our last video. I think we had 10 new subscribers. I want to say hello to those people. It's good to see you. Leave a comment for us because we don't know who you are. That's the thing. If you can't make it to the live chat and we don't see you in there, if you don't leave a comment and introduce yourself, then we don't know who you are.
yeah,
And we want to know who you are. So leave
do.
a comment anytime. We'll always get back to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, come talk to us.
Yeah. Because the best, in my opinion, and I think Ping shares this, the best channels are the ones where we're not just all gathering together for an hour and a half, whatever. We become a community and we know each other. And although this will always be open to newcomers, and we love everybody. Hi, Janet, you're new. Nice to meet you. We'll always be welcoming.
Was that your Wisconsin voice?
Yes, it was. No, it's the roof of my mouth is torn up, man. It hurts. Although we'll always be welcoming to new people because we wouldn't have it any other way. It's kind of neat when you come in at the beginning and you're like that core group. So we get to know people in phases and whatever. So if you are new here, like our friend Janet, thank you so much. And so I will. Okay, so he says it's not a big deal. It was my good friend Gambler. Super, super sweet sharing our stuff around, and I just wanted to say thank you. I know I thanked you privately, but I felt it worthy to thank you publicly. And unfortunately, y'all don't tell me your real names. Don't. I can't remember because and here's the other thing. I know we've talked about this before, but sometimes people will message me all the time, and let's just say their name is, like Mary Jane or something like that. But on YouTube, they're like Sally sells seashells. I can't remember that. So like every once in a while, if you reach out and it like I seem a little distant at first, it's because I'm not making the connection between the real name and the screen name. So that happens too. So sorry. Well, on that note, I think we'll say good night, right?
Yep, it seems like it's that time of the night. So
Okay.
we'll be back Thursday. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet on Thursday, but we'll figure it out. Leave a comment about the new icon and name. I really want to know if that's something better, easier to remember, anything like that. Leave a comment. Let us know.
And more
Because I really like it. So
yeah, I do too. All right. I think we're going to call it a night, call it a wrap, and we will see you Thursday sometime between that little sweet spot, 9:30, 9:45. And until then, take care of yourselves, and we will see you soon. Good night, everybody.